If your business or operations experienced a massive outage or disruption, could you operate? Could you still keep doing business? How would you even know? How do you test? How do you plan? We'll talk about it today on the Ungrowth Show. In July 2024, CrowdStrike, a leading cybersecurity company, experienced a catastrophic global outage triggered by a faulty configuration update to its Falcon sensor software.
Thanks.
Do you have Falcon sensor software at your house?
I don't, not that I know of, but nothing crashed.
You're probably not concerned about security.
I was impacted by this. Thanks, CrowdStrike.
Well, this incident disrupted millions of devices worldwide, severely impacting businesses, governments, and essential services.
Yeah, scary.
So you had just wanted us to feel sympathy for you about 30 seconds ago, saying how you were impacted.
Yeah, because that's what it all comes back to, Brad. Is like,
Tell us how it impacted you.
It impact me?
Mike
yes,
Spence.
Exactly. Yes, like this. They made my Delta flight get canceled. So at least that's what Delta told me.
Did you believe them?
They blamed CrowdStrike. Yeah. Why wouldn't I?
Did they kick you off the plane?
I didn't even see my plane.
Oh.
Yeah. I was at the airport and they sent me home. So, yeah.
I remember one time they kicked you off for not wearing shoes. You weren't going to blame that on CrowdStrike, were you?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't wear shoes. I don't have shoes on now.
So, in any case, if we remember this, depending on when you're watching this episode, it was a massive outage from, again, governments, business. You said Delta came down. So,
yeah.
To the point where the CEO of Delta came out and made some kind of flame-worthy response.
Yeah, blaming Microsoft and CrowdStrike together, right? Because they're it was all Olympics, and they were the official airline of the Olympics, so they had him on talking about it, and he used part of that to blame them publicly.
So if we unpack it a little more, so in the early hours of July 19, 2024, CrowdStrike released a routine update to its sensor software, a key component of its AI-driven cybersecurity platform. However, this update contained a logic error within a configuration file, resulting in the widespread malfunction across millions of Windows devices globally. The error triggered system crashes, causing what was later described as the largest IT outage in history.
You find that funny?
I do find that funny because there is a guy or gal somewhere who got the okay to hit go and push.
Scariest
and now
time
that
ever.
person, and who we don't know that person's name yet, but we will. History will find out this person who was responsible for the largest IT outage in history.
Time. Yeah, they'll probably write a book. There'll probably be something on Lifetime about them.
He's
I'll
the
watch
Steve Bartman of CrowdStrike deployments.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Good Chicago Cubs reference,
right?
man. Yeah.
It was a callback.
That guy got outed. Yeah, poor guy.
I don't even know if he moved back to Illinois yet. I think he just made his home in Arizona. So
I wonder if he works at CrowdStrike.
What would be the odds?
What are the odds? Yes.
Ay, Dios mío.
So many things for everyone to Google there to go, I have no idea what these guys were talking about.
So the incident's impact was immediate and far-reaching. Hospitals, airlines, as you've already described, which we cannot confirm nor deny. That was the reason why you were not allowed on your plane. And governments scrambling to manage the fallout, trace back. So we know the kind of the genesis of this. So, I mean, I think what we don't want to do is just kind of rehash, because we're the Ungrowth Show.
Yeah.
We just don't do what every other technology podcast
That's
does.
the story.
We're not going to give you the practical steps of how this could not have impacted you. Right? We're going to tell you, we're going to backseat driver this thing.
Yeah, sure.
So, but obviously what we know is that rigorous testing, if you're doing any kind of software thing, rigorous testing, controlled rollouts, be agile, and, communicate with your customers. So we've all run into things. Let's start with that end one first. When we're going through technology rollouts, things happen. Yeah. Right. And again, we're not even, look, these are complex pieces of software. So I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here.
Right. Yeah.
Who who knows what all kind of testing and everything that they went through to get to the point where it was okay to deploy. What we assume was they went through what they thought was best practice at the time, and things happen.
Yep.
Things happen. So when these things happen, you got to communicate up front to the best of your ability, and not try to obfuscate the truth, right? So
100%.
ownership of whatever the problems are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at the end of the what because I said it too, but this is how I think most humans. I mean, how did it impact me? If it impacted me, I think that they want to know how did this happen and how will it never happen again, and some may even assume that it's just some kid in his basement or his mom's garage pushing out updates to the and that there were no testing. I'm sure they had a lot of testing on these things, but as you just got to make sure all those are in place. I haven't heard that they didn't have rigorous testing and the proper people on it, but to me, it's you want that. You expect that out of your vendors. You want to make sure that what they're pushing you are good updates, but things happen, and you got to make sure that you're ready for whatever happens.
So I think maybe part of the larger story here is the fact that CrowdStrike, someone who in some faraway office that's not yours, somebody who you've never met, had anything to do with, had the capacity to take your business offline.
Yep. Yeah,
and I think that's the bigger issue, right?
Well, how everything is so connected in this digital world now, right? Everything is digital. This generation growing up now, I mean, they've really known nothing other than we're all connected all the time. It's just the way it is, right? And so, these things can happen. And that's why you have to have a certain level of trust with your vendors but you have to have security, you have to have safeguards, you have to have rollback plans. If something goes wrong, you have to have disaster recovery. And some of those things are hard for people to wrap their head around or even do because it costs money. It's like paying for like insurance or things that if the government regulates it like car insurance, you have to have it. But you don't have to have a disaster recovery plan for your business. That's up to you. But if you don't, then when something like this happens, you're probably going to struggle to get back to any level of normal business quickly. So it's probably going to be worse for you because you're not ready for things like this.
So as we look at, from a business resiliency standpoint, it wasn't, everybody does business online now. Most businesses there's still some that exist that maybe are on, the Oregon Trail somewhere that don't, have anything to do with the internet or anything else, interconnectivity.
All paper-based. Yeah.
Right. But for the rest of the world, we have to build in some type of resiliency action plan so that things that are outside of our control don't completely take us out of the game, right? So how can we come back and make sure that how can I build my business in such a way, my processes, my people, so that we are not, even in the worst of scenarios, even if it's not our fault. I'm sure your customers of a product that you provide don't care that it's your upstream vendor that caused their stuff to go offline.
No.
They're looking at you.
Right.
So what
As
are
they should.
So what are the processes and steps that we should be looking at in order to not only service our customers and communicate with them, but to get our operations to a functional state?
Well, I think it's such a big question because it depends on your industry. It depends on your business. Depends upon, are you regulated? I mean, there's lots of different factors. But at the core of it, even say at a very high level, to have a plan in place for whatever would take your business down. So this was CrowdStrike, right? So CrowdStrike sends an update and it goes out to Windows machines, and all the Windows machines have a blue screen of death. And people in technology know what that means. It's like you're working, and all of a sudden it just flashes a blue screen and you reboot. It doesn't matter. It just keeps blue screen. You cannot get back online. You cannot do your work. So for Delta and the airlines, they are 100% reliant on that system to do everything, ticketing passengers, so it's going to compromise safety. What if they can't go through their normal safeguards, right? So they're very dependent on it. But at the core of it, high level, you got to have some sort of recovery plan, a disaster plan, because this was CrowdStrike as a vendor sending an update that did a blue screen. But what if it's a citizen developer who just learned a new AI tool, who is within your organization, and they were not trying to do anything, just like this individual wasn't trying to bring down everything in the world. They were pushing an update that they thought was a fix, a patch, it was going to help everyone, and they ended up just, it was disaster. But that can happen any number of ways. So it's not just a CrowdStrike thing. It's like if you are a business leader or someone who runs and leads an organization, and you give some thought to your core revenue streams and how you make money, and then say, I have no idea what we would do if certain systems ever went offline for any period of time, then you're choosing Ungrowth. Because there are ways, in many cases, to create offline systems or to disconnect from the internet, and your PCs and all these things still work, but they're going to run on an intranet for a time being. Or if one system fails, how do we fail over to another one? Or what if we lost all of our data? What about data recovery and backup? So those are unpopular things sometimes to talk to businesses about, because it's all about safeguards and insurance, and people like to talk about the risk of it, but they don't want to put sometimes the money, the time, the effort, the resources, and building solid plans to say, if this all went offline or parts of this went offline, how do we continue to operate? How do we communicate to our customers? How do we communicate to our employees? But they should, or else they're choosing Ungrowth, and they could probably have a pretty negative impact to their business.
I think that most owners or business leaders or CISOs or whatever, people in leadership positions, or they expect their technology to work. They hold it to a standard.
Yep.
As is every day is its best day.
99.999% uptime or whatever it is.
Yeah,
promises, right?
we build things to function on their best day.
Yep.
But our infrastructure as a country, as a nation, is pretty tenuous. I mean, if you think about it, we have 3 major telecom providers, right?
Yeah.
So we've seen it on more than one occasion where the AT&T substation or trunk would go out, and then a third of the nation is out.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything to, you didn't deserve that, but it happened. Or,
right.
could happen to Verizon, could happen to, I think Quest is the other one. So, any of these things could happen. So when we stand back and we look, I don't want, I'll give you an example. This is just kind of random personal experience type thing. But we used to have software that was sold, and we were using a private data center. Okay? And then all of a sudden, all of our software went offline. Comes to find out that a forklift had driven into a power pole nice. in the neighborhood where the data center was located. The power lines came down. The batteries clicked on, but the propane generators didn't. There was a faulty starter switch on the propane generator. So 20 minutes later, the batteries went dead. Everything went offline, and there we were until somebody went and started up the generators and things could come back on.
Yeah. Wow.
I could not have guessed that a forklift would have hit a power pole somewhere. But the point being is, if we are expecting everything to work properly all the time, that's kind of foolish, right? So how can we operate, how do we design our business to be resilient enough to say, well, we can withstand, we can operate when things aren't running exactly as they should?
Yeah. Well, from the best disaster recovery plans and failovers that are designed are the ones that work and you didn't even know it. That, like with a Microsoft solution or a cloud, or you think about things in Azure, you can set these things up in a way that maybe there was an outage that impacted a certain part of something, but it all failed over to a redundant set of data and no one was impacted. It still happened. The bad things still happen. Somebody, maybe it was that Cubs guy that driving the forklift. Maybe
it was
crazy enough.
It was up in the Chicago area.
There you go, man. We're going to blame that guy for everything now. But yeah, that's the thing, is that if you have these plans in place, that you may see some disruption, but you're gonna recover way faster because you've thought about it, you've planned in advance of this is how it works. And if your data is important, and it absolutely should be. It's becoming more critical than most things nowadays with your business. It's all about your data. That you got to have this stuff set up in a very redundant way, so that if something happens like a CrowdStrike and it takes down parts of your organization or your systems, it can all fail over to something else without anyone knowing. Because if you don't plan things like that, I mean, you look at Delta. He says, the CEO said they lost $500 million because of all this, and blaming CrowdStrike and Microsoft for that. But if you don't do the things that you need to do to plan for this, can your competitors who are prepared take advantage of that? They said there were increases in like American, United, Southwest. I mean, those passengers who are no longer going to fly Delta for all these reasons, they're going somewhere. They're going to fly your competitor. Just like with your business, that if you're not prepared, you're going to be offline for a while, and all of a sudden you're not dependent anymore. Like you count on your systems up and working all the time, and it's unrealistic. I, as your customer, expect you always to be up and online too, and your competition is a click away. So if you're not going to deliver what I think, or if you're deemed untrustworthy, I'll just go somewhere else that I think is more trustworthy, that wasn't impacted like that. So I think it's just critical. It's not so much the CrowdStrike thing. It's about making sure your business can recover quickly. And most businesses do not have their business processes documented. They are working with systems that are old and out of date, maybe not updated. They're vulnerable to these kind of attacks. They have no idea how they would operate or recover. And you're just setting yourself up for ungrowth.
Let's think about from a customer perspective. I know there's a few different schools of thought on this. When something happens and your customers are now impacted, or your clients, you can take maybe 3 paths. 1, tell them nothing.
Yep.
2, you can wait to communicate until you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Or 3, you can tell them right up front, something's happening, we don't know what yet.
Yep.
Do you have what would we suggest would be the right path forward?
Well, you want to communicate correctly, but you want to do it also quickly. You don't want to just hold back, even if what you acknowledge is there was an outage of some kind, a disruption of service of some kind. At least let them know that you know. But you don't want to be so quick to throw out all the things without having the facts. You've got to do some due diligence, or else you're not for a PR, not to spin it. It's not that. It's about proper communication, clear communication. Because if someone just gets out there and goes, hey, we're sorry for all these things and all the things we did, later on if they find out, well, actually it's not it at all. It wasn't even us. It was something that impacted our system that then did some of these things. Then it's hard to reel that back in, So communicate quickly, learn all you can, and then I would say be very transparent about it. Trust is hard. Trust is hard to build. We don't, at TrellisPoint, we don't take that lightly. We understand that relationships take a long time. Trust takes a long time. We value that. And so if we do have something go wrong in a project, we are quick to own it. If it's us, we'll own it. We're going to find out about it, dig in, and we're going to communicate clearly and effectively. And we just care deeply about that reputation over revenue, and do the right thing always. But that's what I would recommend that other companies would take on as well.
So I could see and I could imagine that that one of the things that kind of blinds us from being as resilient as we possibly could is our lack of imagination for any potential scenarios that could arise. We just could not. I couldn't imagine the forklift would hit a power pole.
Yeah.
I could imagine that a data center would go offline.
There you go.
I could at
least start with that.
But
what happens with that?
Yeah. So
you can write these things in advance. Yes. You can have that communication queued up.
Right.
So ready. Right.
So I guess that's my question. If I want to try to build some contingency plans for my business, and realize that I have some blind spots, that it's, what's my next step going to be? How can TrellisPoint help?
Well, I think it would be, first of all, just we need to have a conversation, because we can throw out a lot of best practices, advice, things from our experience, but we also want to get to know you and your business. Every business is different, unique, even within the same industry. So that first, level of, discovery that we can learn and talk with you, because we want to build, we've been talking a lot about technology, but it's really those plans that you need to create around your people, your process, and your technology, your data. So you need to really think about it in all those ways, because it maybe isn't a piece of technology that goes offline. Maybe it's a person. Maybe someone that holds a lot of intellectual knowledge is not able to, maybe they hit the lottery and they're gone, or what are you going to do in those situations? And how does your business carry on? If you don't have documented processes, it's going to be difficult for anyone to pick that work up and move forward. So there's a lot of things to think about other than just the security of your data, which is super important, and how to keep on if your systems go down. But it's really the people, process, and so give us a shout. We can help you think through that. We can help you be creative around how to message it and put a plan forward for you.
Yeah. And we're interested to hear any lessons learned that you might have. Most people have gone through some type of experience that has been a major disruption to their business, to their operations. How did you solve it? How did you overcome it? Let us know in the comments. Also, if there's any specific questions you might have, that maybe something you're going through right now, reach out to us. We're here to help. We appreciate you joining us on this episode of the Ungrowth Show, and we will talk to you soon.